My lords, I apologise for the need to withdraw from the previous two groups, but I return to speak to Amendment 37 in my name, also kindly signed by the Noble Lord Seeker, and I look forward to his contribution to this debate. Noble Lords will, I hope, recall that I had a similar amendment in committee, in a debate rather truncated by the pressure of time, and at that stage circulated a briefing associated with it, addressing what's commonly called the finance curse, or the problem of too much finance, the subject of growing, now extensive academic and policy commentary that prompted this amendment. That briefing discussed, and I canvassed then at some length, the cost of too much finance as calculated for the UK between 1995 and 2015 as 4,500 billion, or 2.5 years of average GDP across the period, as calculated by Professor Andrew Baker and colleagues at the Sheffield Political Economy Research Institute. I won't go through all of that again, but I will go back to the exchange that I had with the Noble Earl and Minister through committee stage about the source of the government's figure that it's stated as the value of the financial sector to the UK, set at £76 billion in tax receipts, which, as was acknowledged, includes £42 billion borne by customers in the form of VAT and paid by employees in the form of income tax and national insurance contributions. The Noble Earl then acknowledged to me kindly by letter after our initial question the source was PricewaterhouseCoopers. Clearly not an independent source, without individual interest in playing up the financial sector in which it is part. Although, to be fair to PwC, it does not claim in that figure to count costs. It is only looking at one side of the equation, and adds the rider, quote, it has not verified or validated or audited the data and cannot therefore give any undertaking as to its accuracy, end quote. So I wonder, given that I raised this question in committee, whether the Noble Earl and Minister has given any more thought, asked any more of his officials, of how they might look at the complete equation, the costs and benefits of the financial sector. Perhaps if the government is not prepared to accept this amendment or write one along its own lines, perhaps it could look into this in other ways. That's the key question that I would put to the Noble Earl and Minister tonight. Now, I provided members last time with that one calculation, one massive cost, but surely if the government is to be making decisions that will impact on the size of the financial sector, and in consequence other areas of the economy, it has, or at least plans to have, a methodology for doing that. As your maths teacher might have said, you need to be able to show you're working and have a result that you arrived at yourself, or at least that you can source to an independent, respected reference. Now, when we're talking about finance, people often feel daunted and concerned about apparently technical matters. So I'll draw a parallel with something many people and communities around the land are well familiar with. The planned arrival of a new out-of-town supermarket, which promises 100 or so new jobs and growth for the town, a calculated economic benefit. So permission is given, the supermarket is built, and then the residents notice a bit later, 1 week, the greengrocer closed down. A few weeks later, the butcher's goes. Then the stationery shop that supplied lots of small businesses also closes down. Spending has not increased, but shifted. There's a limited market, a limited amount of resources, and they've been shifted to one central location. That analogy works rather well for the financial sector, not just because, as I talked about last time, a maths PhD graduate going into finance is not going into manufacturing or agricultural research or considering education statistics, but because the financial sector, particularly the most lucrative parts of it, are overwhelmingly concentrated in London, indeed within the city of London that is often used synonymously for the financial sector, if a huge percentage of the actual money is actually held offshore in tax havens. Now, I'm sure there are some members of your Lordship's House who will leap up to point out that there are jobs in cities around the land, and that's true, but that's not where the real money is. Now, it was clear that from the Noble Earl's answer in committee that the drafting of my amendment then was unclear, so I've attempted to tidy it up somewhat. I clarified the reference here to inequality to explain that I'm thinking, at least chiefly, of regional inequality. And that's something, of course, with the government's levelling up agenda, I would expect it to be greatly concerned about. After committee, I also honed down the reporting areas, taking out references to risks that were not the major aim of the proposed amendment. I hope that the meaning is clear now, for in his answer at committee, I'm not sure that the Noble Earl, the Minister, although I acknowledge that the pressure of time undoubtedly truncated his answer, grasped a major point of the too much finance argument. He referred to the Bank of England's Financial Policy Committee having the responsibility to identify, monitor and take action to remove or reduce systematic risks, and the Office for Budget Responsibility producing and presenting a financial risks report to Parliament every 2 years. In his answer to the committee, the Noble Earl said, I quote, "The FCA and PRA are required to prepare and lay annual reports before Parliament, assessing how effective their objectives have been advanced. Those objectives are set by Parliament." End quote. To my lords, what this amendment aims to do is to produce the information that could inform those objectives, could see whether the financial sector, as the Sperry report suggests, as I was contending, is too large. How can those objectives be set in a full, relying on only a clearly partisan source of data, not presenting the complete picture? Now, the Buddhist text Udana, dating back to about 500 BC from the Indian subcontinent, refers to a group of blind men, each touching part of an elephant. That produces a great deal of disagreement as they debate what it actually is. Now, I have my own view of the financial sector. I doubt that members of your Lordship's House have much doubt about what that is. But I'm not asking your Lordship's House or the government to take my view, just to have a complete, full view of the costs and the benefits. However, my lords, for the avoidance of doubt, I'm not planning to push this amendment to the vote this evening. This is, as I think my speech makes clear, a continuing discussion, and one that I plan to continue to push the government on. And I'd invite opposition parties, and indeed members from the government side, including the noble Lady Baroness Noakes, who, as she so often is in her Amendment 24 in this group, calling for a cost-benefit analysis or an impact assessment, an approach improved and strengthened by the Amendment 25 in the names of the noble Lord Sharkey and the noble Baroness Lady Kramer. Both of the speakers to those thus far have stressed the need for information for proper scrutiny. I'd ask them to join me in thinking about the need for a full and complete view for what is undoubtedly the financial sector elephant stomping across the British economy. Thank you, my lords.